Okay, so are you ready for this? We're diving deep into your notes and research on fairy faith in the Scottish Highlands.
Oh, sounds intriguing.
It is. We've got excerpts from Exploring the Fairy Faith in Celtic Scotland. And wow, it is just jam-packed with first-hand accounts.
Oh, I love that. Those are always the best.
Right. Get ready, because this deep dive, it's going to be magical.
Oh my God, wait.
So we're examining the work of Todd Fisher.
Okay.
He's an American scholar, and he retraced a 1911 research expedition
Wow.
to see how much fairy faith had changed or maybe even disappeared completely by the 20th century.
Interesting.
I know, right?
So what's fascinating to me here is that we're not just looking at some ancient history of fairy faith.
Yeah.
We're looking at the evolution of these beliefs, like right up to the 20th century in Europe.
It's true. And in a place like Scotland, where you have this clash between tradition and modernity.
Absolutely.
What kind of challenges did Fisher face trying to uncover these beliefs? Because I can't imagine that everybody he talked to was like, oh yeah, fairies, I see them all the time.
Oh, I'm sure that there was a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
Especially when this American scholar shows up
Right.
in these rural Scottish communities asking about fairies.
You're like, excuse me, I'm from out of town. Have you seen any fairies?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a testament to his persistence, and I think the enduring power of these beliefs
Yeah.
that he was able to uncover so much.
I bet. And so, where does he even begin? Where does he start this journey?
Well, he starts in Aberfoyle,
Okay.
which is a village, if you've never been, just steeped in folklore, and it's the perfect starting point.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's in Rob Roy McGregor country.
Oh, wow.
A landscape that just seems to breathe life into legends.
So I'm guessing that he stumbles on some pretty intriguing stories in Aberfoyle.
Oh, absolutely. One of the most famous involves Reverend Robert Kirk, a minister who vanished in 1692.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
1692, a minister vanishes? This sounds like the start of a good fairy tale.
Rumor has it he was spirited away by fairies.
Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. Tell me more about this.
Okay, so there's this massive tree on Fairy Hill,
Okay.
and it's said to hold the key to the fairy realm.
Okay.
Legend has it that Reverend Kirk was last seen near this tree,
Okay.
and his coffin was later found filled with stones.
Wait, what? Instead of a body.
You got it.
That's both eerie and fascinating at the same time.
Right. Really speaks to the power of place.
Yeah.
You know how landscape and folklore just intertwine to create these enduring mysteries?
And so I'm guessing that Reverend Kirk is not the only story from Aberfoyle.
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Fisher also meets Sam and Meg Seabrook, who run a B&B.
Cute.
And they have all these old diaries that are filled with local lore.
Oh my gosh. I love a good diary entry. Okay, so what kind of stories are we talking about here?
Well, they mention the Men of Peace fairies.
Men of Peace.
Yeah, and they're said to wear green. They inhabit grassy mounds, and they throw these wild moonlit parties.
Oh, fun.
But, things with fairies are rarely as they seem.
There's always a catch.
Yeah.
So were the Men of Peace actually peaceful?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it highlights, I think, this tension between appeasement and genuine belief.
Okay.
Were they called men of peace out of respect or fear?
Ooh, that's a good point. It's like
Oh.
tiptoeing around powerful beings that you just don't quite understand.
Yeah, and I think that fear or maybe respect is a common thread through a lot of these stories.
Right.
And, the Scottish Islands, it could be a pretty intimidating place, even without the fairies.
Oh, absolutely. Mist-shrouded locks, ancient forests. Like you said, it's easy to imagine otherworldly beings lurking just beyond the trees.
Precisely. And that isolation, the rugged beauty, it just feeds into the persistence of these beliefs.
It's like the landscape itself becomes a canvas for these stories, a way to make sense of a world that can feel both magical and unpredictable.
And that's something to consider, with your interest in how environments shape beliefs.
It's like the landscape whispers these stories, and over generations they become ingrained in the culture, the very fabric of the place.
And that's just Aberfoyle. Fisher's journey takes him to even more remote corners of Scotland, each encounter adding another layer to this complex and fascinating tapestry of belief.
So I've got vanishing ministers and mysterious fairies in the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah.
But Fisher's journey, it doesn't stop there, right? He doesn't just stay in Scotland.
No, he doesn't.
He ventures out to find some otherworldly encounters.
He does. He ventures into the realm of silkies.
Silkies. Okay, I've heard of these before, but give me a refresher. What are silkies?
So silkies are shape-shifting creatures
Okay.
that you can find in folklore across the Celtic world.
So not just in Scotland we're talking.
Not just in Scotland. No, Ireland. Scotland, Iceland. You can go as far as Iceland and find these stories.
So shapeshifters, we're talking seals, we're talking ancient magic. This sounds right up my alley. So what kind of stories do Silkies inspire? What are we talking about here?
A lot of stories revolve around themes of seduction and mystery.
Ooh, okay.
So imagine a creature that can move between the human and the animal world, alluring and dangerous all at once.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Alluring how?
Well, depends on who's telling the story and what the story is. But sometimes they're portrayed as these beautiful beings
Okay.
who can take on human form, other times as seals who can shed their skin and walk among us.
Whoa, okay.
They're often linked to the sea storms, those untamed aspects of nature.
So they embody that line between the familiar and the completely unknown.
Exactly.
Did Fisher find anyone with any first-hand accounts of these silky encounters?
He did. He spoke with a man named Brian Wilson.
Okay.
And Brian Wilson had a whole collection of silky stories, particularly from his travels in Ireland.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he had a knack for collecting these local tales, these stories passed down through generations.
So these stories that he's collecting, are we talking friendly encounters? Are we talking something a bit more sinister?
I mean, they run the gamut, but they often revolve around the Silkies' ability to kind of blur the lines between worlds.
Right.
And the consequences that follow.
Ooh, okay. I like where this is going.
So you have tales of fishermen, who are rescued from storms by Silkies,
Okay.
only to find their boats filled with fish as if by magic.
Wow.
But then you have these darker tales of sailors lured to their deaths or women disappearing by the shore, their absence attributed to the call of the sea.
So they're not all friendly and out to help humans?
Not necessarily.
So it's like they represent that duality of nature itself.
Okay.
Beautiful and dangerous, capable of great kindness, but also like a terrible wrath.
Absolutely.
And it makes you wonder, are these stories just colorful tales, or was there something more to them?
And that's the question that kept Fisher going,
Right.
Were these stories simply ways to explain the unexplainable?
Right.
Or did they point to something beyond our understanding?
Right.
And, speaking of things beyond our understanding, there's a story about Jenny Legg.
Okay.
She's a yoga instructor who swore she encountered a goblin on the road to Lockard.
Hold on. We're adding another creaker to the mix now. We're going from silkies to goblins.
That's right.
Okay. Tell me everything.
From silkies of the sea to goblins of the land, there's no shortage of strange encounters in these parts.
All right.
So Jenny described this creature as small, hunched over with eyes that seemed to glow in the twilight.
Oh, that's creepy.
And she swerved her car to avoid it, convinced that she had almost hit like a small child.
Oh, gosh.
But when she stopped to check, there was nothing there.
Oh, no.
No child, no animal, no sign of anything at all.
So she's driving along, and then all of a sudden she sees this creature, thinks she almost hits it, slams on her brakes, gets out, and it's gone.
Gone without a trace.
And it's not like it's a squirrel or a rabbit. We're talking something resembling a small child.
That's what she claims, yeah.
Okay, so that's a genuinely creepy encounter. That gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You have someone like Jenny, a yoga instructor, presumably grounded in logic and reason.
You would think.
And yet she still had this unsettling experience.
Exactly.
So it makes you question, do these beliefs persist because people want to believe? Or is there something else out there that we're just not equipped to fully comprehend?
It's a great question, and it brings us to this really fascinating point.
Yeah.
Which is this clash between, folk knowledge that's passed down through generations and our modern skepticism.
Right.
And it's a tension that's very much woven throughout Fisher's journey.
And it's not all ancient stories and fleeting glimpses, right? He actually meets people who are actively practicing these traditions in the present day.
Yes, like Stan Aiton,
Okay.
who is a self-proclaimed white warlock.
A white warlock. Okay.
Yeah, he carves these really intricate boxes,
Okay.
and he claims they're inhabited by fairies.
So he's crafting these little fairy homes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's dedication.
I know.
So he firmly believes in the existence of these fairies.
He does, and he actually has a theory about why more people don't, or why people struggle to perceive them.
Okay, I'm listening.
Modern technology.
Really?
Yeah, he argues that our constant exposure to technology, to screens, to this digital noise, it's dulled our senses. It's made us less attuned to the subtle energies of the fairy realm.
It's like we've traded our intuition for convenience.
Yeah.
Our connection to the natural world for the allure of this digital world.
That's exactly it.
So did Fisher believe him?
Well, Fisher approached it with his usual curiosity.
Of course.
Listening intently as Stan explained his craft, how he would select wood for specific fairies, how he carved with intention, imbuing each creation with this certain energy.
Right.
Whether or not Fisher believed is left for the reader to decide.
Of course, of course.
But Stan's perspective, I think, adds another layer to this whole exploration of belief.
Right, because it challenges us to think about what constitutes proof.
Absolutely.
Is it firsthand experience? Is it scientific data? Or is it something else entirely? Something more intuitive, something more reliant on feeling and faith?
It's a question that kind of echoes throughout history, right?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile these traditional ways of knowing with the demands of our modern scientific worldview?
And it's a question with no easy answers.
Yes.
But it's definitely one worth pondering.
Absolutely.
And it's clear that Fisher grappled with it as he journeyed deeper into this world of fairy faith, encountering everything from ancient tales to modern practitioners like Stan.
Yeah.
And through these encounters, he stumbles upon, I think, one of the most captivating figures in his journey, Duncan Williamson.
Duncan Williamson, a renowned storyteller, a weaver of words, a true keeper of Scotland's oral traditions.
Duncan Williamson. It sounds like he's more than just a storyteller. He's almost like a gatekeeper to a whole other realm of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
What role does he play in Fisher's exploration?
Well, Duncan becomes a sort of guide for Fisher, offering insights not just into specific stories, but into the heart of fairy faith itself.
Oh, wow.
And he grew up with these stories, so he brings this real depth of understanding that goes way beyond, just an academic curiosity.
So what kind of wisdom does Duncan impart? Like, what are some of the highlights from their encounters?
Well, one that stands out is his tale about the Duke of Argyll. Now, who was this nobleman who fiercely defended the rights of the traveling people? These nomadic groups that were often misunderstood and marginalized.
Right.
And what makes this relevant to fairy faith is the Duke's own unwavering belief in fairies.
Okay.
Which seemed to go hand in hand with his sense of justice and his defense of those who lived on the fringes of society.
It's interesting how these beliefs often intertwine with social dynamics and power structures even.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, was the Duke drawn to fairy faith because it offered a different lens through which to view the world, like a lens that challenged maybe the prevailing norms of his time?
Yeah, precisely. Fairy faith, particularly among groups like the traveling people, can be seen as a form of resistance, a way of holding onto their traditions and their beliefs, even in the face of a dominant culture that often sought to, erase or control them.
So it's like these beliefs offered a sense of agency, a way to reclaim their own narratives and their own connection to the land in a world that was rapidly changing around them.
Yeah, and Duncan, through his stories, really highlights this connection between belief and identity.
Yeah.
And the power of holding on to those threads of tradition, even when faced with these pressures to conform.
But I'm sensing that there's more to Duncan than just these whimsical tales, right?
Yeah.
He issues a warning to Fisher too, doesn't he?
It does.
About digging too deep into this fairy realm.
Yeah, there's a sense of this world of belief, while enchanting, isn't without its shadows.
Right.
Duncan warns Fisher that delving too deep, becoming too fixated on unraveling these mysteries, can lead to a kind of madness.
It's like curiosity killed the cat, but in this case, it's like curiosity drove you mad.
Yeah, it's almost as if he's saying, there are some things that humans just aren't meant to fully comprehend.
Right.
Some boundaries we cross at our own peril.
It's like a tightrope walk between belief and disbelief, between fascination and fear.
Yeah.
And Fisher seems to be navigating that tightrope, with both curiosity and caution. But we've danced around it long enough. We've got these incredible stories, these intriguing encounters. But the question on everybody's mind is, do fairies actually exist?
Right. The million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Fisher's work is that he doesn't try to answer that question.
Okay.
He doesn't give a definitive answer. Instead, he offers something much more valuable.
Okay. What's that?
He invites us to consider the nature of belief itself.
So forget about proving or disproving the existence of fairies.
Yeah.
It's more about keeping an open mind and embracing the mystery.
Exactly.
And wonder that still lingers in the world, even in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
So he's saying, go on your own journey of discovery. Explore these stories. Listen to the echoes of belief that linger in the landscape.
And draw your own conclusions.
So we've reached the end of our deep dive into fairy faith in the Scottish Highlands.
I know, I've loved this conversation.
Me too. What's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this?
For me, the biggest takeaway is the importance of holding on to that sense of wonder. That willingness to consider possibilities that are maybe beyond our current understanding.
Right.
Whether you believe in fairies or not, their stories offer a glimpse into a different way of seeing the world. A world where magic and mystery are still very real and very present.
That's beautifully said. It's a reminder that sometimes the most enriching journeys are those that leave us with more questions than answers.
I completely agree.
And to you, dear listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and maybe even inspired you to embark on your own exploration of the unexplained.
Absolutely do it.
Who knows, maybe you'll even have a fairy encounter or two along the way.
You never know.